So the next speaker will as well represent a global sales organization from DSV Group. René Falch Olesen is Chief Commercial Officer in DSV Group. René is leading the commercial development and sales activities of the DSV Group, covering all three business divisions: air, sea and road solutions. He has been working in the company for more than 24 years. In 2007 he became the Managing Director of the DSV Road operations in the United Kingdom, and then he joined DSV's Executive Management Committee as Chief Commercial Officer in 2013. Please welcome René.
Yeah, you could say it's more than 24 years. I've been there for nearly 30 years, or actually over 30 years, I'm thinking about. I worked it out the other day. That means of my life, I've spent more than 61% within this company as well. That's a bit scary in itself. But it's only because it's extremely enjoyable that you do these things. So when I started, I didn't wear glasses. I had hair, which I get reminded every time I go and rent a car at Avis. I have to pick out my driving license, which is now 30 years old. And that's quite amusing. Nobody actually recognized the face in front of them when they see that. So that's a little bit about me. I'm going to talk about the way we see changes in the relationships that we have with our customers at this moment in time, and how that impacts the way that we organize ourselves, the services that we have to offer. And I think a lot of the things you'll probably find that half of the audience will disappear halfway through the presentation, because a lot of things we're saying is the same. You know, this morning a lot of things were said that I'm probably going to repeat in here. But one thing that's important for me is actually that we live in an extremely volatile environment. There's loads of changes that we have to adapt to all the time. That goes for us, that goes for our customers, and that's actually what makes our job interesting. So for the younger part of the audience in here, I hope some of them are left still. It's actually a fantastic industry to work in. It is really challenging. I've tried now for a number of years to tell my kids that this is the industry to get into. They look at me as if I'm the biggest idiot on earth when I say it. I don't know why. They probably do that generally anyway, but it is a fantastic industry, trust me. When we look at adapting to change, and when we work with our customers on being able to adapt to change, you can say the better you are predicting the future, the more likely you are to actually hit it nail on. But we also have to accept that finding the truth of what's going to go on and happen tomorrow is probably a little bit difficult. And there's actually 4 gentlemen here that try to predict the future. And in a way, you could argue that they all got it horribly wrong. If I show you an example, this one's probably the best example. It's a computer, it's a television, it's definitely an iPhone, and it also covers a little bit about the internet as well. So those predictions are probably not their proudest moments when they look back, but I'm also sure that most of us, we've made predictions as well about the future that we would like not to get repeated, having said that as well. So they're just unlucky that they're well-known individuals. When we then look at it going forward, and we try to guess, that means our customers are guessing, our customers' customers are guessing about what's going to go on in the future, what's going to be the new trend. It's not easy. What we know is that a lot of things are happening as we speak. When I go through the airport, I live in the UK, I've lived there for many years. When I go through all the UK airports, those of you that visit Heathrow, Gatwick, Stansted will also have seen these adverts from HSBC. I don't know if have anybody seen all the adverts from HSBC in the UK? There's one that scares the living daylight out of me. It's the one where it says, in the future, goods will be transmitted, not transported. You know, I'm just hoping that they'll just prolong it for another 15 to 20 years, then I'll be alright. And then resources will be okay. But if you see some of the developments, I don't know if any of you have seen the test that I think DHL made one in Bonn as well recently, and Amazon, who we saw earlier today as well. They have actually on YouTube, you can see this video of their so-called primary product. I've said my next career would be to shoot down drones that deliver like that. We can't break that to anybody. Obviously, we have to be careful with that. But I can't see a world where there's drones all over the place dropping parcels. But it would be quite interesting. And it is what is doable, what's achievable. Is it likely that this is the way we're going to do it in the future? Who knows? Google are testing in California, testing vehicles, cars without drivers. So why would you want to have a car in the future? But, by the way, I always think about what all the taxi drivers are going to do, because they're going to be out of the job very soon, if that works. But on the other hand, we also saying, it was mentioned earlier, what about drivers in our industry, lorry drivers? If we need more volume moved, we need more lorry drivers, or do we? If this is the future, that a car can drive without a driver, they're also testing that lorries can go without a driver as well. We had a philosophical discussion on this subject last week. We said, what if they actually collide? Who's at fault? Who do you sue? Who sues who? I don't know. So that can give you a bit to think about in that perspective. When you look at Gartner, this is the latest update. I think it's called the technology hype cycle. When you look at that, it's actually probably one slide that everybody should be using to look at what might hit them next. And if they're not aware of it, at least relate to these things and say, could that within my business have any kind of impact on the way that I conduct my business, on the expectations my customers have in the future? And I've just marked a few of them. Transmitting rather than transporting cargo gets pretty close to the one called 3D printing as well. The 3D printing was one entry, I think, in 2010. It's now 3 entries on this one. What will that do to us as businesses? And what will that do to us as consumers? The first idea is probably we all expect to have a printer next to us, and then there's shoes and milk and all sorts of stuff will come out of it. I don't think that's going to happen tomorrow. I might be horribly wrong, be referred to in 10 years' time. Said, that idiot, he said that, and it happened the day after. Somebody's probably testing it as we speak. But these are the challenges that we need to look at. We are looking into it in terms of saying, what would 3D printing do for our business? Is that actually a business area that we need to do something about as well? So look at the potential and accept that change will occur. We all talk about big data. Actually, big data was not on the list for 2010. What is big data? Big data is absolutely nothing unless you convert data to information. And that is probably one of the biggest challenges everybody have at this moment in time. Amazon, as an example, using data to predict buying pattern of individuals as well, with the aim to actually already decide what you're going to buy in 5 minutes and then start shipping it to you as well. I've said I, for one, will be determined when that packet arrives to say, I didn't order that. Maybe it's already shipped when I order it, so that will be a bit of a scary process. But if you look at that, if that is actually possible in the future, the demands on us as businesses and our ability to change is going to be absolutely tremendous. So I think it's a good reference point when we look at it. And then we look at supply chains today. How do you actually change, or what is the requirement to have a supply chain that actually works for you? We say it should be pull-based, so basically it means that it's on demand. Whenever the customer requires something, they will order and they will get, according to whatever you agreed with them. The supply chains that can respond to the customer demand are the ones that will win going forward as well. So you can say the battle actually in a lot of business areas is not about brands competing against each other. In many ways, it is actually about the supply chains. Why can Amazon sell a product more efficiently to a customer than many other of their competitors on the internet? It is basically because they're better and more efficient at the way they handle it as well. So it has to cater for the demand. It has to be in sync. There's a lot of, Mark, you mentioned it as well, there's a lot of areas involved. When we look at moving a shipment from A to B, yeah, it's just one shipment, but it is probably about 100 data transactions that we are looking at in that context. All that has to be in sync. It has to be in sync with one event happening in one place will lead to an event happening at a different place. That has to be known a second, not 5 days later saying, oh, by the way, I forgot to ship the container from Singapore, so that's why it didn't arrive in Rotterdam. You knew that when it happened, so you knew the impact going on as well, in that sense. A lot of automation. If you look at purchase orders, both inbound purchase orders from your customers and outbound to your suppliers, they are seeing more and more automation. there's no human intervention needed in order to handle the purchase order if your systems are actually working adequately. And that's what we see in the future as well, that less and less human intervention, which is also, I think, back to when you look at we have the same observations on land transport versus air and sea. One of the significant differences, in our opinion, is that in land transport, it is a commodity. It is seen as something that is just fully automated. Yeah? It's easy. That's what people at least perceive, and that's great if they perceive that if they're a customer. But if you look at the air and sea, there's a lot less productivity involved in the air and sea shipment. There's a lot higher revenue involved in air and sea. Hence, you can probably give a little bit more attention to it and be a little bit less automated in your processes. We can't afford that in, for instance, the road freight area, nor in the solutions. And then it has to be proactive. There has to be decision trees that in the event that there's changes to the original plan, that all the decisions going forward are then made as far as possible by automation. But it has to be a structured process in that respect as well. And then obviously there's optimization from end to end. You need visibility both in terms of time, you need visibility in terms of money, and no doubt you need visibility in terms of carbon footprint as well. Carbon footprint is I think, one thing that we saw a lot of hype up in our industry up until 2008. A lot of people were extremely interested in the environment, then the crisis hit us, and then a lot of people got very disinterested. That is coming back, and it's a necessity that comes back as well, because we've got kids and grandkids coming after us as well. And then the supply chain has to be flexible. It has to cater for change constantly as well. So when we work with customers, obviously it's about visibility within the supply chain. That's extremely important at all levels. It's about predictive analytics, so working forward, what can you get out of the data that you have? I never thought this would happen. When we went to a stage where we said, okay, we will now have analysts involved, and they're the people that can actually dig into data and make some sense out of them. And they're now being referred to as data scientists. It sounds so much greater, in that perspective. But we've even implemented a research and development team in our global organization as well. We don't have many in our industry that go in and actually say we actually conduct research as well. And then obviously when you look at the customer in the supply chain, it's this automated decisions. And those automated decisions are not necessarily between the customer and one partner. It's a multitude of partners. It can be customers at one end, suppliers at the other, and a multitude of 3PLs, for instance, in between. So it is a massive jigsaw that you have to get together. When you then look at the importance of supply chain going forward, and we are seeing it as well, a lot of, it was mentioned this morning as well, that a lot of executive level positions within supply chain are now coming to the fore. Businesses are realizing that this is not only about manufacturing and selling products and managing your business. It is very much a case of having the best possible supply chain. Hence, it's being lifted in the organization. When you then look at filling these positions, I think if you look at the 3PL environment, we are typically fantastic transaction-focused people. We are not a process industry. We are changing, but we're still not a process industry. So when you look at this, you can easily get more freight forwarders or customer service clerks into your organization. But where you're going to struggle is when you want the competencies on supply chain management. So that is something that we as an industry, great to see a bunch of young people here as well that have seen the light, that you need to look at. This is a great opportunity for you in the future. Absolutely right choice, no doubt about it. You'll love it. And then the sales pitch, we allow a little bit of sales pitch, just a little bit. It won't be a lot. We have spent years in DSV building what we call a global network, and then we say, is it global? Yeah, we're in 75 countries. We've got 17,000 trucks on the road. We've got 750,000 TEU a year and 250,000 tons of air freight and more than 2 million square meters. That was all. That's the sales pitch. That's it. If you've bought it, you can sign up afterwards. Those of you in the logistics company, you probably don't want to, but that's a different story. When we look at that network, for us is the foundation of what we do as a business. We feel it's very important that we have the ability to execute, not only give advice, we want to be able to execute supply chains on behalf of our customers as well. So for us, you can say it's like building the foundation of the house in our business. What we've then done is, obviously, the supply chain visibility becomes important. It is very important that we have track and trace. Track and trace, by the way, is quite old-fashioned. We are in an industry that still think track and trace is part of the future. Actually, the only interesting bit about track and trace is the event management or the exempt reporting. We're not going to, most people assume if we promise we're going to be there on Tuesday, then we're going to be there on Tuesday. Why would they want to go and check on Wednesday whether we were there on Tuesday? They would know that. So it's about the exempt reporting, what we can give in information, and actually pushing to our customers and saying we're getting better and better at that every day. That's what's important. And then we run control towers, we have the whole event management, the decision trees, and we have to go all the way down for our customers to purchase order and SKU level in order to actually help managing your supply chains as well. And we see ourselves either as a full part of the supply chain or just a partner within it. And then we are looking at the part we call supply chain innovation, where we actually actively pursuing a role where we want to go in and challenge our customers. We have an awful lot of data in our businesses. Schenker has even more data than we have, but I think we've got enough for the next 3 or 4 days to cope with in terms of size of data. What logic can we actually get out of that? What trends can we read? And could we actually potentially, from these overall trends, be a better advisor to our customers? That's really what it's about. And there, in the supply chain innovation practice, we really go in, and I'll give you an example, we really go in and challenge our customers in that respect as to, are you really doing it? Are you really prepared for the future as well? And it's quite an interesting dialogue, because sometimes you just think afterwards, you probably should have kept my mouth shut. But hey, it's interesting. It brings good discussions as well. And when we look at these innovation programs, it is really looking at end-to-end from original raw products, raw materials, to the consumer. That's what we look at. That's the whole spectrum that we look at as well. So you have to map out with the customer exactly where are you today, how are you organized, etc., to actually get your base case as well. And that is something that we find we're not the only ones that have a lot of data and very little information. I would say that most customers are exactly in the same scenario. They might have disjointed systems with a bit of information here and a bit of information there. That has to be gathered into one picture, and from that one picture you derive the information and the actions going forward. So we go through the model, the base model, and then the scenarios that you want to look at going into the future. And if we take this example here, we work with one of our big customers in healthcare. They have, for them, a business which was really a commodity business. They looked at it, this is commodity. We turn over in that business segment 250 million euros, and we make 10% EBITDA on that. In freight forwarding and 3PL, etc., that's quite handsome in terms of profitability. But obviously not in healthcare. That's sort of, we're not really sure we want to do it. What we went in and looked at was that this company also in that segment, they grow, they basically double their size every 7 years, and that's also their projection going forward, that will just continue. They also realized that they have a supply chain which will not be able to cope with that in the future. It's simply not scalable in terms of what they need in order to support their customers going forward. So they came to us and said, okay, what we want you to do is we want you to determine the most optimal network that you can set up for us in terms of both the warehousing, the assembly, the warehousing, and the distribution of products. And they looked at a 15-year horizon, and then they said, we want order cycle times of either 2, 5, or 10 days. That's really the scenario. And we basically went into the project and did the whole value stream mapping in order to do the analysis of the end-to-end cost and the lead time on the different supply chain offers in hand. That actually led to us working on 20 different scenarios and mapping out 20 scenarios for this particular customer in order to establish the scenarios going forward. And that includes everything. So it's their manufacturing cost, it's the transportation, it's the assembly cost, it's the obsolescence and the inventory. It's everything involved. And we looked at different models. Obviously, it became a hybrid in the end. And quite interesting, obviously, the infrastructure needed in order to cater for this going forward as well. And they had actually a predetermined idea. When we did the final presentation with them, the guy who led the project, he said, thanks for bursting my balloon, which was the best comment you could ever get, because they were about to do something that would have gone horribly wrong. Because what they forgot to look at was actually, what do my customers require? So when you say, yeah, but I want order cycle times, my customer want their goods in 2, 5, or 10 days, it's very easy to actually build that in. But what if the customers don't want that? And I think it was mentioned earlier as well, customers are individuals. When I use a computer at work, everyone says, yeah, but you're in business to business. I'm the same person when I sit with my computer, and I use the computer in the same way. I don't know whether you Google differently when you're at work to when you're at home. I do it the same way. It's the same logic for most people. And probably you're thinking he's old-fashioned because we don't Google at all. For the younger generation, I still do. If you then look at the takeaways here, and the interesting bit was we actually came up with a solution for the customer that we are now implementing, where it led to a 13% improvement in the supply chain cost. That's based on the current cost, so that's you can work that forward as well. And it also meant a 20% increase in their EBITDA for this particular business area. Quite handsome, but the funny bit in that conclusion is actually that you were in a situation where the average order cycle time increased by 3 days. Because we ended up with the dialogue with the customer's customer, who's actually the most important in the world. The customer's customer actually said, in some cases, I can do to order, sometimes I want it in stock, etc., etc. So we have different models now. So they've ended up with a number of different supply chain offers for their customers as well, that caters for the customer need. And that was really the most important. And also to see afterwards that this actually comes to realization is quite satisfying in that respect. But it does require, when I go back a few slides, it does require skills that we as an industry, I think, are lacking as a whole industry. We lack it. We need more of those individuals that can do these analysis, because this is not just about cutting the price down in a purchasing situation. This is when you talk about partnership. I don't know, we've all been exposed to this is a partnership, but it's really a supplier and a customer. But fundamentally, this is a changing model. You're a lot more open, you spend a lot more time together, you have to understand each other's business. And if you don't, then you're wasting your time. This is not just a tender process. So then, as with Schenker as well, we also have to remember that it's not all our customers that want this. I've got 3 minutes left, but this is the last slide. So I'll have to do a sing and a dance in a minute. That won't be good. It won't be pretty. We will have to look at all our customers. We are global, we have a local touch, and we feel proud of that as well. But we still also have to think about the customers. Customers are different sizes. They are in a different place in the maturity model when it comes to supply chain. Some will go straight in at the top, some will be at the bottom, some don't actually need to do all the fancy stuff. So we need to be able to meet our customers at very different levels and cater to their needs at the time. So it's not only about the services that we offer, it's also about the knowledge that we can actually provide them with. That was it for me.
Thank you, René. I think we will anyhow take a couple of questions if arising, so please go ahead.
You said that we are often underestimating the development of research technologies.
Yeah.
I think we are doing it now. We are thinking with big data, internet, new technologies that are all hot, and we might be missing out on something really important that's going on in the background.
Yeah.
And in 10, 15 years, we're looking back over what they are.
But that's always going to be the case. But the safest model to end up in that situation is to keep your eyes completely closed and then hope for the best. So what we're doing is we're actually looking at what's happening and say, have a view on will that impact us. If you're willing to have your eyes open and not always reject every idea. I think one of the problems we have as an industry is that it is typically a very low market industry. And that means that people tend to look at everything which we spend, which is not directly linked to the business we do today. That gets forgotten a little bit. Can't we wait with that? Yeah, but if we wait for too long, then we won't have the service that we need. And it's really this adapting to change. So it's great that we can go and talk to our clients about how much they need to be able to adapt. If we at the same time we're not doing it ourselves, we're not setting the best example out. So I think it is a case of being open, testing certain things as well, and you know what, not everything worked, and I'm sure we can probably get more statements from the 4 guys as well. They probably said a lot more as well that was right, and I'm sure they've also said a lot that was wrong, on top of what they've already been marked here for. So, yeah.
How standardized are your services, since you said that not everything fits to every company.
Not very. This is probably the biggest challenge that we have, because when you look at it, where we come from is we come from a global organization that is decentrally driven. Yeah? And it's quite a nice question, because we are currently doing what we call the product catalog in order to better guide our customers. And part of the background for doing that is that I've said, if I was a customer, and if I look at a single customer that wants to have a transaction carried out, if I was a customer, I want the best advice from me. Yeah? I'm the supplier. But what if I have 5 different solutions that not even I know about? You know? What if I have an A&C solution that actually fits the bill, or a courier solution that fits the bill better than moving pallet by road? Should I not tell you about it, that there's a better solution? Am I sure that that happens in any of our companies at this moment in time? No, I don't think it happens. So what we are saying is actually we are looking very much into developing self-services where we better have to define what is our offering, what is available to our customers, and thereby give the customer actually a better tool than we currently have ourselves to be able to determine this is the best solution for this particular incident. But it requires us to standardize a lot more, but still make it customizable so that we don't actually end up in a situation where we say, we've now decided everybody wants everything shipped in 4 days. It doesn't work like that. So you have to give the offer, as far as I'm concerned.
Okay, one more.
Considering the different systems, now of infrastructure and legislative considerations, how do your company, in terms of logistics, have a synergy between 2 countries or among different countries or continents?
What do you mean?
Different infrastructural facilities and legislative problems.
How do we deal with it?
Yes.
Yeah, in terms of, that's again where we say the local touch is extremely important, because if we sit in the headquarter, I work in the headquarter, but I've decided to keep sitting in the UK, because it means I actually touch reality a little bit as well. When you sit in the headquarter and only in the headquarter, you tend to lose track of what actually goes on in the real world. And what we look at is the input that we have to how we develop our services, our products, our systems. It's very much based on the outside looking in rather than the inside looking out. So it's actually our world consists of 75 countries, 200 legal entities. They have an impact on everything that we do. So when we for instance, develop IT systems, there's no point in me assuming that we will have the same services available and same technology available all over the place. But actually one thing that we see in terms of, for instance, tracking and exempt reporting, when we look at that, you know what? Everybody has got a mobile phone. Everybody's got a smartphone. So if you actually look at the overall expectation that you have, and then you tie different technologies to that overall expectation, you can fulfill it anyway. So a lot of the things that we are doing, it's actually about mapping it correctly, and then sometimes also not going into too heavy infrastructure investments as well, when there's actually some logical ones available to us. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you, René. It was so nice to hear, like Markus presented, that you both 2 leading companies, that you are really listening to your customers. It's a little bit different way than Henry Ford used to say. If you ask your customers, they only ask for quicker horses. Okay, thank you. Let's give a hand.